I had my children on the floor. I was on my favourite blanket that my grandmother gave me on the floor like a cat.
And I realised in that moment the potential of what our bodies can really do as women.
Like I could feel his head, I could do my own internal, like, yeah, his head, I could feel it.
I was in tears, I was just in tears and overwhelmed with gratitude.
Hi and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast, the podcast that is bringing embodied birth wisdom from women from all over the world sharing their natural birth stories. Don't forget to subscribe and download so that you can always have access to these empowering and positive natural birth stories. Hi, my name is Anna and I am the Natural Birth Podcast host. I'm a former midwife who left the system and I'm now the proud founder of Sacred Birth International, a woman-owned company with a mission to revolutionize the birth world and bring focus to the sacred and the natural intelligence of the birth process. We do this by providing world-class education, courses, programs, and coaching to equip women with the knowledge and the tools to have conscious pregnancies, empowering and positive birth experiences, and the most nourishing start possible for themselves and their babies postpartum. We also educate and mentor aspiring birth workers into sacred space holders and physiological birth advocates in the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship, the Beyond a Doula training. If you'd like to work with me or take any of our courses, programs, or the mentorship, then head on over to sacredbirthinternational.com to find out more. Hi, Sonia, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm so good. I'm happy to be here. Excited to share this story with you.
So excited to have you. So let's dive on in. I mean, you have a very eventful birth story for us, but ultimately you chose to have a home birth. Was that something that was always obvious for you, or is that a journey that you went through throughout being pregnant? What did you feel when you found out you were pregnant?
Yeah, so I've kind of retold this story now to like all of my birth team people and friends and family. And I can't really pinpoint exactly when I decided that I wanted to have a home birth, but it's been so long that I can't remember when it was. Probably sometime in my early teenage years after seeing something in a movie or a show. And it was kind of just like, it's just a no-brainer. This is where I like would want to be in an event like that. And I remember feeling that it was the most amazing thing. When I got pregnant, we had been trying for quite a while. My husband, we actually had to go through 2 different vasectomy reversal surgeries. So it was a very intentional thing trying to create our baby. And I found out while I was on a trip to meet my best friend's baby for the first time when she was just 3 weeks old. So I was states away in Ohio visiting her and found out the morning that I was leaving. And so it was so exciting to kind of get to share that with her. And I remember just after finding out, we were sitting on the floor of her baby's nursery, and I kind of was just laying on the carpet like, is this really real? And it just was a moment that I had waited for so long and had never experienced, and obviously was so excited. And immediately I started emailing every midwife in our area because I know that they book up so quickly. We have a decent team of options in our area, but we only have a few CNMs, the certified nurse midwives, which I wasn't 100% sold on what level of qualification of midwife I wanted. I'm a pretty natural minded person. And so part of me was like, I could just do this on my own, but I knew I wanted some support. And if anything, once we tell my birth story, I had so many people at my birth, and I don't regret it being that way. I really enjoyed sharing the experience with everybody. But yeah, right away I was like, okay, I have to email everybody just to see, who has availability. And I think I was only just over like 3 weeks pregnant. I found out basically as soon as you could have been able to find out. So that was exciting.
I love that. First, I really want to comment on like how special and different it is that you were so young, knowing that you really wanted to have a home birth. Is that because like your mother or other people in your family had home births at all, or were you exposed to other people in your area? No.
No, no. My mom, so I'm the oldest of three. My mom had all of us naturally, but at the hospital, and I guess naturally is not exactly the best way to say that anymore, but without any medications or anything like that. And so I always admired her for that, and grew up knowing that that was kind of my birth story.
Mm.
And yeah, I babysat for some people actually that I ended up seeing, I think through Facebook or online a couple years later, that their last child was born at home. And I remember thinking that that was really beautiful. They had posted a video, and actually loving that. But at the same time, hearing other people that lived kind of near us criticize them and think how weird and funny it was that their baby was born at home. Um, and just in the back of my mind, always being like, wow, I just think that it's the most wonderful thing. But no, I grew up knowing that birth wasn't scary, and that I'm really thankful for.
Beautiful. I love that. So you sent all those emails out. I guess you interviewed a lot of different midwives, and in the end, did you choose a certified nurse midwife then?
So I did end up having a certified nurse midwife, but I actually didn't get to interview a lot of people, and I actually didn't get to choose, which is really interesting. And I kind of say that all the time. It was my only choice. My midwives were the only choice that I had, and they were a great choice. So I think I got really lucky. The stars all kind of aligned for me that this was the way it was supposed to happen. My mind was actually set on a different midwife that I had seen. There's a local Facebook group for home births in our area, and I had seen people speak about her, and she kind of has more of that older woman grandmother feel, and that's kind of what I thought that I wanted. And after everything was said and done, my doula actually, I interviewed a few doulas, but my doula actually had her home birth with the midwife that I thought that I wanted, who ended up not serving my area at the time that I was due. And my doula kind of reinforced that I was in good hands, because the midwife that I thought I wanted has a much higher rate of first time mom transfers. I
Mhm.
think just because she's a little extra cautious,
Mhm.
and things like that. But I I ended up getting really lucky. I really enjoyed my CNM and birth team. Just they were amazing, and it was so nice being cared for. The whole time that I was pregnant too, and never feeling rushed, and just really feeling like you were building friendships more than just being a patient of somebody.
Yeah, that's the beauty with midwives. So let's dive into your birth story. Do you want to take us back to like how many weeks were you when you maybe had any kind of signs of labor approaching for you? Did you have that at all?
Yeah, so I was probably like 36 or 37 weeks when I really started feeling some of those practice contractions or waves. We had rented a lake house actually for we do that every summer typically, but it was my son's birthday, 13th birthday, and so we were all together. We had a beautiful day out on the lake, and then I came back and was cooking dinner, and kind of had to take a moment to be like, wow, these are kind of picking up, like, just not that they were getting painful by any means, but just kind of taking my mind away from what I was doing. And I laid on the couch that evening and even timed a few of them just because I could tell they were coming so frequently and they were kind of grabbing my mind from, I think we were watching the Olympics at the time actually. But things died down and I ended up going to sleep, and that was it for that. And then things kind of steadily stayed the same for the next few weeks. And then where I live in North Carolina, we have a lot of not necessarily direct hits from hurricanes, but we get a lot of the like hurricanes kind of after they've come up from Florida and things like that. So we typically get some of all of the hurricanes by, a little bit here and there. And we had a storm that was coming through, and right at the same time, there was a full blue moon, a super moon and a blue moon at the same time. It was really beautiful. We saw it lasted for a few nights. And my guest date was approaching, which the funny story about my guest date is that I actually, I told my midwives what my date was, and it wasn't the assigned date that if you had just done the calculations, the assigned date would have been the 18th of August. And I was like, no, it's the 21st of August. I know because I have been tracking, and just like I said, everything was very intentional. And I know that my baby was conceived on a full moon. And then I had told them my guest date is the 21st, which I had made up in my mind was going to be at least a week or so later than that anyways. But it was probably the 19th, 18th, 19th or so. We had that storm roll through and the full moon started, and I had everybody texting me and calling me and saying, how are you feeling? And do you think is anything happening? Is anything changing? And I kept saying, no, I feel really good. I was getting tired. I was, almost 40 weeks pregnant, but overall I felt really good the whole time I was pregnant. I was so fortunate, but I was just starting to get really tired. So I spent most of those last couple of days kind of laying on the couch and, walking back and forth to the kitchen and doing some stretching on my yoga mat and things like that. And people started kind of bothering me a little bit. And I'd show my husband, some people would ask me how I was doing, and some people would just, flat out say like, can't wait for baby to be here, or when's the baby going to get here? And I think things started to get to my head a little bit. Even my husband, I think I had taken a shower and done my hair or something. And he was like, you can tell me if, do you think something's going on? He thought because I had taken some extra preparations that I knew something that I wasn't sharing. And I had started to feel some of the practice surges coming and going here and there. They weren't, very powerful or overwhelming, but definitely noticeable. And I think I let everybody get to my head a little bit. And it was like, okay, I think it was probably, like I said, the 18th or 19th probably that it was. I was like, we're not doing that again. I told my husband, I said, I can't have you on top of everybody else, guessing, because it could be 2+ weeks from here and I can't live in this state for that long. So I had kind of just said, like, we're done with that. We're just gonna change our mindset, and this isn't happening anytime soon, and we're just gonna hang out. I had a conversation with my doula on the 20th. I just was really tired. Like I said, spent most of the day on the couch, and she had said that going for a walk might be, helpful just to kind of help feel a little bit better. I just was kind of tired and achy and stuff. And she's like, just a short walk. We were starting to get nicer weather in the evenings. It had cooled down. And I remember I made fettuccine Alfredo for dinner, and that was very ambitious of me because I was doing pretty easy meals at that point. And our family sat down to eat, and it was delicious. I ate probably more than had eaten in quite a while, because you get full so quickly at the end of pregnancy. And things started to kind of ramp up during dinner. We had a late dinner. It was probably 8 o'clock or so, 8:30 by the time we finished dinner. And I didn't say anything to my kids or my husband. I kind of just sat there and, ate my dinner as comfortably as I could, and had mentioned to my husband about going on the walk prior. And I was kind of like, wow, I hope he forgets about this walk because I just want to go lay down now. And of course, we finished dinner and he told our kids, he's like, Mom and I are going to go for a walk. We'll be back. And I was like, darn it, I have to go on this walk now. So we walked out in our neighborhood and did the shortest little walk around the block possible, but it was very, very slow. It was, I had to take a lot of pauses, and it's still in my mind. It was like, no, this isn't happening. Like, this is still like weeks away. I'm just very uncomfortable. I had not really come to grips that things had kind of progressed. We made it home, and I think I immediately went and hopped in the shower because I just was tired and, achy kind of feeling, and got in the shower, hung out in there for a little bit, got out and was going to kind of lay down in bed, and things started to kind of ramp up. And I was on my yoga ball and stretching on the floor, and my husband and I are kind of going back and forth, and I'm kind of making these faces and going like, oh, this is getting a little bit intense. Like, I don't know what's going on. And he was like, well, should we text any of the team? What should we do? And I was like, no, I think it's too early. Like, I don't think we should text them. I don't think that this is it. This could go on for days. And he's like, okay. And at one point he looked at me and he said, well, why don't you just take a couple Benadryl, and why don't we do this in the morning? Which everybody laughs at that part of the story, because it's like, how do you tell a woman in labor, like, let's hold off. Let's do this later. And I know what he was trying to do, like get me to rest and whatnot. And that's exactly what our midwives and my doula had said, to, rest in early labor if you could. But I was like, well, if I take Benadryl now, what if this is the real thing? Then I'll be sleepy and loopy, and I don't want to take the Benadryl if it is real, but I don't know that it's real. And I just was all sorts of conflicted in my head about what was actually happening. I think just because I had listened to so many birth stories and watched so many birth stories, that I knew that this could be, a really long process. But things picked up pretty quick. So that was probably at 10:30 or so at night. And it was probably about 11:30 that my husband finally sent that first text to our team in a group chat, just saying like, hey, things are kind of picking up. Just wanted to let you guys know. And of course, I didn't even realize what time it was, and that it was kind of getting closer to midnight. And I think our birth assistant was the one who responded, just saying like, hey, I just happened to see this because at night you have to call us. And, what's going on? How are things going? And it just things just really snowballed pretty quickly from there. I think it was about 11:30, the waves just started to get so strong. And I kind of knew this about myself, that I'm someone that when I don't feel well, or even just with period cramps, kind of the first day, like the overwhelming feeling makes me feel really nauseous. And I had kind of hoped that I wasn't going to feel that way in labor, but I think deep down I knew that that's what was going to happen. And so it was probably around 11:30 that I ended up getting sick and losing all of my delicious dinner that I had just made and eaten. But that's when it was kind of like, okay, this is a little bit more real. And my husband had been in contact with our doula, and that's kind of what the midwives had said. Like, if you need some extra help, definitely talk to your doula. She can come over and help. And I was also very fortunate that my doula and my midwife team have worked together multiple times. So they're great at communicating with each other and just kind of, trusting one another to kind of know when the time is right. But So we kind of just labored on our own for a while. And I think in my head, it was still very early. And like I said, I truly thought that it was going to be at least, a day of what I was experiencing. But at the same time, had kind of that conflict in my head of like, this is getting really intense. And I did end up taking the Benadryl and attempting to kind of rest for a while. I definitely did not sleep, but was able to at least kind of lay down through a few contractions and feel a little bit more rested, I suppose, instead of just kind of walking and pacing back and forth and bouncing on the ball and all the things that, I kind of was doing. I utilized the shower, which was really, really nice. And then it was probably around 2 o'clock in the morning or so that it was like, okay, I think we need to get the doula here because things are picking up. And so I think I was back in the shower at that point when I was kind of asking my husband, is she on her way? When is she going to be here? How long is it going to be? And it's funny how in all, the stories everyone talks about, like the time during labor and birth is so non-existent. You don't know if it's been 5 minutes or 5 hours, and that couldn't ring more true. I had a very bad concept of time. And in my head, really the whole time through labor, I had this inner dialogue going, and it was like, don't ask what time it is. I wanted to ask so badly, but it was like, don't ask what time it is, because if it's only early in the night, you're going to be really upset. If it's been a really long time, you're also going to be upset. Like, just don't ask. So I think I had gotten out of the shower, my doula arrived, and we started doing I guess it's important to mention. So from the very beginning, when my husband started timing some of the contractions, my contractions were 1.5 minutes long every 3 minutes. And they basically stayed like that through the duration for the most part. And when my doula got there, she had me trying some different things. I laid with my back on the bed with my legs kind of dangling off the bed. And that I just remember felt horrendous. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know how anyone labors on their back. I don't know how anybody could possibly do this. I did it for a few contractions, and then we're like, all right, we need to move to a different position. I labored on the toilet for a while and completely understand why everyone says that it's the dilation station. It was like a sit down and the instant want to stand back up. But I'd say that it did its job. And yeah, between the hours of like 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., things are pretty fuzzy. I think we kind of just went back and forth to trying different positions and just attempting to kind of get more comfortable. I had a lot of back labor, which I had done everything in my power to try to get baby to not be in a sunny side up position. My best friend had just delivered a baby in a sunny side up position. And, you hear all these horror stories. And I was like, okay, my mission is going to be to get this baby to face my back and do all the right things. And my baby was born not sunny side up. So I don't know if at some point they turned, but they were maybe sunny side up. And that's why I experienced so much back labor. But that was kind of unfortunate. It's definitely, I prepared somewhat for it, but I don't know that you can truly prepare for something you've just never experienced. Only to a certain extent.
And every woman experiences labor and birth differently. And just because you have back labor doesn't necessarily mean your baby's lying with its back towards your back. So it's not like equal that, right? It's just some women, that's where they feel it. And it's also dependent on how your womb is positioned, because the womb is just not the same position in every woman, because our bodies are different, right? And, just everything, ligaments and muscles and the fascia, everything affects how your baby's lying and how your womb is tilted here and there and everywhere. And And also, of course, we can absolutely with positioning throughout labor, throughout pregnancy, help our babies get more aligned. But at the end of the day, um, they're going to find the best way for them to come through and navigate
Yeah.
your unique body at the end of the day,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So,
the way that I kind of say to everyone, like, birth is kind of like a fingerprint, it really is so individual, and unique because even, people who have multiple births, it's like every single one of them is different. And how could they not be? Because your baby's a different person and, it's just never going to be exactly the same. But that was why it was part of this was so important to me to be able to share my story because I really did search so far and wide to find first time mom home birth stories because there's a lot of first time mom birth stories, but a lot of them are in the hospital and epidurals, and it's just a very different experience. And then there are a ton of home birth stories, but a lot of those are subsequent pregnancies, or I joke with everyone and say I will watch and ingest every single home birth story I possibly can. I love them all. But watching, an eighth baby be born at home didn't quite resonate with me in my, where I was, that I just wanted so badly to watch, all these first time moms have this experience just so I could kind of get, their mindset and takes and just all of the things. So I was like, hey, I just have to share this story as much as I possibly can because, it is it's just so beautiful and I wish that everybody could experience something, so wonderful.
yeah, beautiful. So it sounds like, you really, your labor started and it was just full on from the get-go, kind of fully established, really what we call active labor from the absolute first contraction. Um, so take us
Yeah,
back
I think
to around what, 2 a.m. or something when your doula comes and you do a bit of positioning, but what happens after that?
yeah, so we just kind of between I think my husband and I were kind of in the depths of it ourselves at like 2. My doula arrived, I think probably just before 3:30. And, kind of between there and 4 a.m. We just did, different positions on the ball, on the bed, sideline, just all the things. We tried the TENS unit, which I absolutely hated. And, just kind of some different things for comfort measures. And I ended up back in the shower. I had my husband from before, at the very beginning of labor, actually put a yoga mat down in our shower so that it would be a little bit more comfortable kneeling. I don't have a bathtub in my house, but we hadn't set up the birth pool yet. So I was back in the shower, kind of on my knees. Luckily, I do have a bench, so I was able to kind of lean over that and just kind of vocalizing. And I think it was probably around 4 o'clock in the morning that I've tried to pinpoint where transition kind of happened in my labor because it's kind of difficult to tell because things got a little hectic there towards the end. But um, possibly this could have been transition just because I really was vocalizing kind of some doubts. I know in my head, I only really had fear pop up twice in my labor, and one of them was in the shower, kind of at this moment. I just was kind of going back and forth with myself of like, I'm really tired. I've been up, almost at this point, I didn't know it, but almost for 24 hours. And I just was starting to get really, really tired. And things were starting to get more intense. And I remember asking my doula, is this normal? Like, I don't, the whole time I had told everyone, like, I don't think baby's coming soon because I hadn't felt baby drop. Like, they still felt like they were kind of high up. And I hadn't lost any of my waters. I hadn't had any bloody show, mucus plug, nothing had happened. So everything just was completely normal as it had been the day before, except for now I was having these contractions. And I was so distraught in my mind of like, is this normal? Like, is it normal to have like things feel this intense, but yet none of the other things happen? And my doula was so sweet. she was sitting outside the shower, and she kind of gave me this like very roundabout answer in like the nicest, most like comforting way of like, you know, everything can, you know, it's different for everybody. And, you know, sometimes this is perfectly normal. Like, wouldn't give me like a yes, it's absolutely normal, or no, this is not, but just kind of comforting me in a way. And it was around that time that I I started asking for my mom. So the plan was that my mom was going to come over, my sister, and then my brother, my dad. Everybody was going to kind of come over and be downstairs in our house, and we were going to be laboring upstairs where everything was set up in our room. And I wanted everyone to be there to like kind of be there right after the fact, or if I wanted to see somebody, because I'm such a family girl. And my parents have been divorced for a long time. And so I was kind of slightly concerned, but knew that they would do what they had to do in the moment to like just be there for me. But I wanted everybody to be kind of at my fingertips if I wanted to see any of them. And my mom, my husband had talked to my mom earlier in the night and told her how often the contractions were coming and things like that. And she was like, well, then it has to be soon. She was very convinced that it was going to be soon. And I think it was my doubt that kind of pushed this timeline for everyone else, that made everyone else kind of delayed, because I was so set that this was not happening as quickly as it actually was. But my mom arrived probably just around 6 a.m. And starting at like 4, I was like, has anyone spoken to my mom? Is my mom coming? Is my mom here yet? Like, and I just kept asking, because again, the time, I didn't know if it had been 5 minutes or an hour. I was just like, has my husband spoke to my mom yet? And I just kept insisting, like, I wanted my mom there. And shortly after that, or right around kind of that same time, I had told my doula, I said, you know, I'm so confused because none of these other things have happened, but my body feels like it's starting to get kind of pushy. And that's when I think she kind of stepped out of the bathroom, and I think she called my midwives and was like, I think you need to get over here, or start heading this way, and kind of relayed that message. And shortly after that is when I felt I had kind of been checking myself periodically to see if I was feeling anything different. I'm a very hands-on person and a very sight like person. So I had a mirror that I wanted to use that never ended up getting used. And obviously in the shower, it would have been pretty difficult, and it was dark, and I wear glasses and contacts. I didn't have either of those. So I couldn't really see anything, but I kind of shouted out to my doula, I think I just lost my part of my mucus plug, and had, you know, reached down and just kind of felt something different. And she was like, can you describe it? And I was like, no, because I can't see anything, but it feels like what I would imagine it should feel like. And to me, that was a little bit reassuring and kind of exciting that like, okay, things are progressing. Like I released a little bit of that like doubt that things were just, this was just going to be a couple day event of what I had been doing. So we ended up getting out of the shower, and I think I labored. And before I got out of the shower, my husband finally took a 30-minute nap, which was very much needed. I've looked back at some of the birth photos, and he looks more tired than I've ever seen this man look, because he was running around like crazy, kind of prepping everything, getting everything where we needed it to be, and, you know, relaying all the messages while I just kind of labored away. So he got in a quick 30-minute nap, and I had kept telling my doula, I really would love to get in the tub. Like, that's just how I'm feeling. Like, I'd love to get in the tub. So it was like perfect timing. As soon as I got out of the shower, my doula went to go and wake him up to tell him to start the tub, and his 30-minute timer was going off to like wake up at that moment. So he kind of jumped on getting the tub set up, and we're so fortunate we have a tankless, like continuous hot water, so we didn't have to worry about running out of hot water or filling up pans or doing any of that. And so that was a pretty quick process. And I labored on the toilet for a while longer, when all of a sudden it was like a hurricane moved into my room. It was like the moment my mom was here, I knew it, and I could hear her like flying up the stairs and into the room. And she was very flustered and I think winded from running into my house and up the stairs. And I just can remember like feeling her, and she was, I'm here, baby, I'm here, and just so comforting, and was so worried about me. I think they had really relayed that I was asking for her a lot. And so she came and comforted me and was rubbing my back while I was on the toilet for a while longer, waiting for the tub to be finished. And she helped me up and into the tub. And then we kind of just sat there for a while and listened to the music, and things got really peaceful, especially in between surges. Was really able to kind of just sink into the tub and relax. And they fed me a popsicle at one point, and we sang The Circle of Life by Elton John from The Lion King, just kind of low under my breath. And my mom was holding my hand and pouring water over my back with a cup, and it was really beautiful. That's kind of what I had envisioned for most of my birth and labor, of what I wanted. We had set up twinkle lights in the tub, and it just was really, really special. And then surges would come, and I just was a lot more vocal than I ever really thought that I was going to be. And I joke with people, I was roaring. We were I was in all of my power, just kind of letting things out the way that they needed to happen. And I think it freaked my brother out a little bit. He was texting my mom at the same time saying like, is she okay? She sounds like she's being tortured and things like that. He was very concerned. He's my baby brother. But I just remember feeling like that was kind of what I needed to do, just these deep roaring sounds. And like I said, the contractions really were so long that, all of the people have you hold the ice and practice, being resilient for that minute. And I continue to tell myself, like, you can do anything for a minute. And I've joked, I'm like, it was that extra 30 seconds after the minute that really tested me. I was, anticipating them to be about a minute long, but I wasn't necessarily anticipating them to be over a minute long, almost a minute and a half for so long. But things just kind of kept moving, and my midwife and birth assistant arrived probably just after 7 a.m. And I remember sitting in the tub, and we have windows in our room, and one of the tub was in front of one of the windows, and I had a bunch of pictures and birth affirmations on the wall, and just kind of things that I knew I wanted to be laboring that way. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that it was dawn, that the sun was starting to come up and I could see light through the window. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it had been all night. And there was a sense of calm, I think, in that, just seeing the sunlight starting to come through. And like I said, my birth team, the rest of them had arrived, and I had kind of talked about it with them that I didn't want to be checked, or that if I asked to be checked, I kind of wanted to be questioned of why I wanted to be checked and things like that, because I didn't want to just be nervous in the moment or something and kind of be grasping for answers that weren't actually there. But like I said, I had kind of been checking myself periodically just to see if I was feeling anything different. And at one point, I felt like I was feeling a bag of intact waters. And I kind of questioned that, like, could I be feeling that? And I said something out loud, And I finally did. I said, could you check me just to see if that's what I'm feeling, like if I'm correct? And my midwife was like, well, if you want me to like do a full cervical exam, then I kind of need to get you out of the pool. Do you want me to just kind of feel and, give you like my best guess of what's going on, or do you want to get out? And I was like, no, I want to stay right here. I kind of laid sideways and, just rested as much as I could. And she checked me and she said that she thought what I was feeling was my urethral sponge and not a bag of waters. So I was like, okay. And then in my mind, I was kind of like, nothing. Like just keep doing what you're doing and stop trying to like pinpoint every little detail of this and just keep moving. So I labored. I was probably in the tub for a couple of hours total. It felt like 5 minutes, but it was kind of like, okay, let's get out of the tub for a little bit. I had my popsicle and we tried a few other positions. And then finally I ended up back on the toilet and I was sitting backwards with a pillow. And my husband was doing counter pressure kind of at the same time. And I was just having these, very, very strong surges. And all of a sudden, at the peak of one of them, it was just like a poof, like this loud like noise, and it felt very intense. And I was like, I think my water just broke and kind of like shouted that out. And the way our bathroom is set up, the toilet is in a separate room and it's a very small room compared to the rest of the bathroom. So my husband and I are kind of just shoved into this closet. And my doula and my mom were like, do you want to get back in the tub? And I was like, yes, let's go. So kind of let a couple surges pass because they're coming pretty quickly. They get me up. And as I stood up, my gaze was down and I saw the water in the toilet. And I knew it registered right away that it wasn't the right color. It looked like pea soup, like just a dark green. And I knew what that meant, but it didn't fully click in my head of like what that meant, I guess. And so as they helped me out, kind of back to the tub, my midwife had gone and kind of looked in the toilet and came out, and she was like, so did you use the bathroom? Did you poop while you were on the toilet? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so, but I really don't know. And again, it's so difficult to have an actual conversation. I'm kind of just muttering out like, I don't know. And I'm more kind of like, my husband could answer that probably easier than I could because, he's clear-minded and was behind me the whole time. So I don't think that I did, but she kind of stopped us before we got back in the pool. And she was like, so I think there's meconium, thick meconium in the water. And I think, we need to talk about transferring to the hospital. And kind of in that moment, everything time kind of stopped. Like it felt like everything was just kind of this fluid motion the rest of labor. And then in that moment, everything kind of just like, it was like a chill kind of hit. And I wasn't really upset. I just kind of was like, trying to understand what, like catch up to what was happening. My brain just was kind of moving a little bit slower. And she said something along the lines of like, can I check you and see where baby's at? And if baby's really close, then obviously, we're going to have baby now. But if baby still has a while, I think, it would be the safest option for baby for us to transfer. And I was like, okay. So I laid down, she checked me again. Anytime I was on my back the entire labor, I was just like, wow, I don't know how anyone does this. This just is the worst. She said that baby was in like a 0, -1 position, and probably was at least still like 30 minutes away. And I was like, okay. So we started talking. A couple conversations kind of started happening at once. It was like, the hospital that we were transferring to, then kind of got second guessed just because the closest one doesn't have a NICU. If it was needed, should we go to a different one? And then a side conversations happening because the bag that I had packed in case of transfer was like a very half-assed packed bag. It wasn't ever intended to actually be used. So it was like, okay, well, what do we actually need? And I kind of just started saying like, I need my glasses so that I can see. And I told my mom that there was a labor gown in one of those bags that she could get for me to put on, for me to go downstairs. So they helped me off the bed and got this labor gown on me and a diaper. And I kind of instantly just felt called to like go into this deep squat position. And I just instructed my husband, like, help hold me up. And just had some really, really big surges in that position. And my mom said something like, your dad wants to, come and see you. I think everybody had kind of like heard through the grapevine of what was going on. And I think my dad was worried about me or wanted to comfort me. So he ended up coming upstairs, and we have a really beautiful picture of me being held up in this squat position and him bending over, just holding my face. And, it's like being a little kid again, just hearing your parents' voices of telling you, like when you're hurt as a little kid, like, oh girl, you're doing great. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And, kind of had this moment with him. And then it was like, okay, the 911 had been called. Our birth team took care of that. So I didn't hear any of those conversations or anything like that, but I knew that I was moving downstairs to wait for the ambulance to arrive. And my mom and dad helped me down the stairs in our house, which this is a really difficult thing to make anyone else understand. But my parents, like I said, have been divorced for a really long time, since I was like 13 years old. And they don't get along. We don't have many moments where everyone is together. It's like weddings and graduations, and that's about it. So to have them each, my mom was on my left side, my dad was walking backwards down the stairs in front of me, just so close together, physically holding me, and then just really holding me. I'm like tearing up talking about it, but it really was so beautiful. They were just so encouraging and kept like cheering me on. And every, 2 steps, it was like huge surge. And I just was roaring so loud. And they're just like, one more step, you got this, you're doing so well. And, just like working together to help me. And it just, the whole time in my head, I was like, this is the craziest thing. I cannot believe that I'm experiencing this moment right now. And I'll stand by that. Walking down the stairs, I know, helped move baby, but I think the emotional shift that happened with my parents, like, really kind of did something to me. So we made it all the way down the stairs, and someone asked, like, do you want to wait on the couch? What do you want to do? And I just kind of like, I think I even sarcastically answered, like, I can't go sit on the couch. Like, you want me to just go relax on the couch? That's not happening. And I think I said something like, I should have a yoga mat down here somewhere. Cause like I had said earlier, that's basically all I had been doing was stretching and walking to my kitchen for the past couple days. And my yoga mat was right there. My dad's girlfriend, who's been in my life for a really long time, she kind of rolled it out like a red carpet or something in the middle of the living room. And I just kind of instantly went down to all fours right there. And everybody then was kind of in the living room, and it turned into, it felt almost more like a sporting event, because there just were so many people. I mean, it's a very large room. My house is like a very open floor plan, so it wasn't everybody crammed, on top of me, but I could hear everyone and I could feel everyone, and little things are being said. I know, like, the birth assistant was like, if you feel the urge to push, like, you push. And if baby's coming here, like, we're going to catch baby, like, you just do what you have to do. And again, it's like time. I didn't know how much time had passed, and really was only a few minutes looking back at it, but I was on all fours, just feeling these huge surges. And, I wasn't actively pushing still at that point. I kind of just was feeling like letting my body feel like it was pushing, and kind of leaning into that. And all of a sudden I said, "Oh, I feel burning." And I kind of said that quietly. And it was like, again, it was like the game of telephone. All of a sudden, like my doula heard it. And so everybody was like, "She feels burning, 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 burning." And my midwife was like, "Oh, okay. On your next contraction, can I kind of feel and see, if we're feeling baby?" And they joked, they told me after the fact that they have like a little code between themselves that before baby starts crowning, when they can kind of just start seeing baby's head, they call it tiara, instead of, it's not crowning yet, but it's tiara. And it's actually in the video, that the midwife says to the birth assistant, "Tiara," and you hear the birth assistant in the back saying, "Oh, we're having a baby." And everybody kind of gets excited in the room. And at the same time, the fire rescue had arrived, because they always come here with EMS and fire. And my brother had gone across the street because that's where my daughter was. And everyone wanted to make sure that she wasn't scared if she saw, EMS or fire at our house, and just kind of let her know what was going on. And he joked, he said, "I could hear you all the way across the street at your neighbor's house from inside." And I don't know, part of me thinks that that's awesome. That I was really, shaking the whole house. But things just really, it was like this excitement was in the air of like, this is going to happen. Okay, baby's really close. And it felt at that point that now all of a sudden it was like a time crunch, right? It's like, okay, well, baby has to come now. And I guess that's not necessarily the case, but I did, it was kind of like, okay, well, you have these people waiting outside your door, or about to be waiting outside your door, and you don't want to go with those people. So like, you just need to finish this job now before they get here and try to make you go with them, which again, you can absolutely say, "No, like, we're fine. Give us a minute," whatever, which is what my birth assistant did the whole time, kind of held them at the door and just explained what was going on. And we were so lucky that everybody that came was so, so kind and like excited for us and happy with the situation. Like, they weren't trying to be pushy and come in and save the day, or, whatever. You hear these stories about these people who really try to impose themselves into the birth space, but we didn't have any of that, which was great. But so at that point, my mom, I think, was sitting on the floor next to me. My husband was kind of up by my like shoulder and my head. And he, at one point, like kind of whispered, he like kissed me, and he was like, "Okay, girl, like, let's get this done. Like, let's do this." And he kind of gave me that like extra little push. And in my head, I kind of had this inner dilemma of like, well, you're not in the water like you wanted to be. You were just going to listen to your body and not push at all. And now you're on the living room floor in front of everybody. And you're, what we had kind of started talking about was like to give it a few good pushes, and see what happened. And I just was like, "This is over for you. You're going to tear so bad." And I just was really hesitant. Like, in my head, I just was like, this is not what I want to be doing. This isn't where I was supposed to be. And all of a sudden everything stopped. No, the contractions stopped. Everything kind of just stopped. And I was like, what is going on? I mean, I have been having strong surges since 8 p.m. the night before. And now we're here and everything just stops. And my birth assistant was like, "Can you, stimulate your nipples a little bit to try to get some, feeling back and things like that, to just get some oxytocin flowing." And I remember kind of in the back of my head thinking like, this is just so funny. Like, my dad and my brother are like standing like feet away behind me, and we're having this conversation about stimulating nipples. And I'm just, at that point luckily I'm not a very like shy person, or, you know, when it comes to like these things, it's the most beautiful part of life, and there's nothing to be ashamed of or bashful about. But I just, in the back of my head, was like, this is too funny. So then, yeah, I stimulated my nipples. So I'm kind of on a tripod, like balancing with one hand, and can barely get a hand up there, but was able to just get, which is really so wild because I honestly didn't realize like how well that actually works. And it was like just a little bit of a wave kind of coming through at that point. And then it was like, okay, I kind of reached a point in my mind where it was like, this isn't really about you at this point, Sonia. Like, you're going to deliver this baby and you're going to be fine, but whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I kind of just told myself, like, okay, we're going to do this now. And I pushed. I kind of got up into like a runner's lunge, and it was like little bit by little bit. I reached down and I was like, oh, that's hair. Like, I feel hair. And then it was like a little bit more, and I could feel the top of baby's head. And then it was like their eyes were out and their face was out and then their whole head was out. And it was definitely, you hear the stories where it was like baby just shot out, or the head was out and then the rest kind of just followed. But it was very much like section by section, piece by piece, push by push. And I was very much like holding baby's head. I think at one point my midwife was even like, don't pull baby. And I wasn't pulling, but I was very much like, I just felt like I needed to have like hands on them. And it felt comforting to me to kind of support the tissue and the area, that like gave me some comfort where I wasn't like in the water and kind of in the situation I wanted to be in. That made me feel just a little bit more supported. And their, shoulders came out and they kind of just continued, and I brought them right up to my chest, and it was just like a whirlwind. Everybody was, it was, like I said, it was like a sporting event. Everybody was like cheering and so exciting. And I'm just kind of in this bubble of like, I can't, like, disbelief, and introduced myself to my baby and was just like, oh my gosh, like, hi, I'm your mama. And just held them to my chest, and they were so beautiful, and like kind of let out this little cry right from the beginning to let me know that everything was fine. And there was no like waiting to see, if they were going to make some noise, or she's a girl. I didn't know at the time, but she was, such a great color. She was covered in blood and vernix and meconium. So she was just covered from head to toe. But I just held her to my chest, and they helped me to kind of sit back, and I was leaning against my couch on the floor. And it had been several minutes, and my husband was kind of like, well, are you going to tell us? Like, I still hadn't even looked at, the gender. And so I kind of leaned her back, and it was just like, oh, you're a girl. And I think a lot of people had made up in their minds that I was going to have a boy. So I think everybody was a little bit surprised. And it didn't really dawn on me in that moment. It took a little bit. But she was a very large baby. She was pretty large. So when it came after, we had sat there for a while, they helped me to lay down on the couch, and I just laid there with her. She like went straight to do her breast crawl. And so that was really sweet. We have pictures of my mom kind of behind me helping like hold me, and I'm holding her. And we kind of just waited for the placenta to arrive. And I was a little bit worried about hemorrhage, just because you hear stories, and really obviously didn't want that to happen. I really didn't want to have Pitocin after birth and everything. So that was in the back of my mind, and I just kind of was like keeping eyes on everyone else in the room, and I felt fine. And luckily everything was great. I took some herbs in like a liquid that my birth assistant kind of gave to me in a little cup, and I just held my baby, and my family was kind of behind me, like behind the couch, and just peering down. And yeah, finally, I think a couple times I was like, oh, I feel some sensations. And I think my midwife kind of checked just to see if it felt like the placenta had um, detached. And she was like, no, I don't think it's ready yet. And it was probably almost, a good hour that we waited and just kind of hung out, and it never felt rushed. It was never like, okay, this has to happen now. I kind of just kept vocalizing like, oh, I'm feeling something. And she would check for me and say, I think we have, a little bit longer. And then finally, it was time. And um, birthing the placenta was honestly, it was so nice. Like I've heard someone describe it like it was like birthing a jellyfish or something. And that's really, I'd say, what it was like. And just so easy after like all of the hard work. And I really think I had built up like just glorifying the placenta after listening to so many stories and watching stuff that people do with their placentas and things like that. So I was like, I was very excited to meet her as well. And everybody actually was like, wow, your cord is just beautiful. And we have some photos of it. This cord was just so thick, and it was really beautifully like coiled. And it felt so special, and it felt like everybody around me was like, you know, had just cheered on and like complimented just all of the work that I had just put in. And I got like the biggest reward and had everybody there to kind of celebrate it. The part that I left out was my sister didn't make it to the birth. She like came in probably, I think, 8 minutes after she had been born. I was still on the floor, and it was just a series of events that was so interesting. That was, now looking back at it, and her and I had a conversation, it was exactly how it was supposed to play out. But she had gotten like a nail in her tire while she was driving like the 2 hours to us. And then my mom had told her that we were transferring. So she went to the hospital instead of coming to the house. And so she arrived like just after. And we have these like beautiful photos of her walking in, like just bawling and holding us. And it was really, really sweet. But so after the placenta had been born, my mom and my sister helped me back upstairs, which I tell everybody like that was the worst part, just because stairs and postpartum don't go together. They're not fun. So I was supposed to, birth her upstairs and stay upstairs and just get in bed. But instead I had a little extra trip up the stairs, which was fine. I had a lot of support, but it just wasn't fun. And so they helped me upstairs. And as we walked into the bathroom, I met my own gaze in the mirror, and I kind of just looked up at myself and in my bliss and just said, wow, I look so pretty. My hair was like matted in a mess, and I was in an adult diaper and, had meconium all over me and blood. And just, I mean, someone would have looked at me and gone, wow, she looks a mess. And I just looked at myself and was like, I look so pretty. And they helped me shower off and get in bed. And my husband was doing skin to skin with our daughter, Milena, while I did all that. And then I got in bed and they put her back on me. And again, she was just trying to feed. And came time to do her little exam, and they weighed her, and everyone took their guesses. And I knew she was going to be long. I knew this baby was long just because how I could feel them. But I didn't anticipate the baby to be very big. And they weighed her and they're like, all right, final guesses. And I think I guessed like upper 8 pounds, closer to 9. And she was 9 pounds, 15 ounces, and she had pooped multiple times. So they were like, that was a 10-pound baby. She was healthy, super, super healthy. Just, she wasn't really chunky, but she was just full and, great color and so alert and awake and just ready for life. So it was beautiful. And I don't know that I've stopped feeling like a superhero, I guess. The 10-pound thing kind of just added to it. I think I would have still felt that way no matter what. But, my whole birth team were like, you're a rock star. Like was just amazing. So yeah, it was a whirlwind, and happened a lot faster than I thought that it was going to, but it was beautiful. And I ended up with just a small inner labial tear kind of towards the top and didn't need stitches, which was amazing. And again, that was probably part that I was most not fearful of, but just wasn't looking forward to the fact that if I did need stitches, that I'd just be doing that at home. I kind of have a fear of needles and just I knew it wouldn't be fun for me. So I was really thankful that I didn't have to do that. And yeah, it just went so much better than I even could have anticipated, and didn't go according to plan. But just still was so perfect.
And what happened to the fire brigade and the ambulance?
So we actually have that on video. It's funny because we have video cameras outside of our house as well, and so we had that on camera there. And then I had a videographer at the birth, and she captured it perfectly. That the my my birth assistant kind of was like, "Hey, so baby's been born, everything's good, and you guys can go." And she had kind of told the fire department when the EMS hadn't even arrived yet, like, we're gonna have this baby, you guys can go, everything's fine, baby's crowning, like about to be here. And they're like, okay, well, we have to wait for EMS, it's just policy, but we'll hang out here. And then EMS arrived, and I think it was 3 women, which they said like they love it when the EMS team is women. And she again like met them at the door and was like, baby arrived, everything's good, you guys can go. And we have it on video, them just at the door going, okay, awesome, congratulations, bye. And they were like, all right, bye. And they just closed the door and we went on with the day. We were back, in bed, just a couple hours after she had been born, and eating bagels, and just everybody kind of piled into our bed. And we opened a special bottle of wine that my husband and I had brought back last year from Italy. And my brother went and picked up my 92-year-old grandfather to come and meet his great granddaughter. And we all just, it was just beautiful. An experience that, you really only get to have at home. So
It sounds like this is such like a party for you, like a big fat celebration. When you're telling your story, I can almost like see your whole family and all you support people like cheering you on, and how that really filled you up and helped you, and that you felt so supported, that there was so much love and celebration around you. And I mean, not everyone thrives in that, but you did. Like that was
yeah.
perfect for you, and the birth of your baby. I love that for you.
Yeah, it just felt really fitting. I know I've listened to a couple stories or people say like, for every extra person you invite to your birth, like expect an extra hour of labor, because you don't like to feel watched and things like that. And I mean, that definitely rang true to certain points. And I think it very much helped that it was just us for, kind of a big duration of the beginning. But then when it comes down to it, like I said, I'm such a family girl, and that's what I enjoy most in life, and spending time with these people and things like that. And I really think that birth is something so beautiful to share. And my dad got to witness his kids being born, but I mean, I don't know how many people get to say that they witnessed their grandchildren being born, especially the grandfathers. My brother, has never experienced a birth. So just this experience that I kind of got to also gift to them, I think was really, really special. And I just loved it. And I couldn't imagine it any other way. It really kind of fit the bill of what I needed, and then was the perfect like scenario of the world that my daughter was kind of born into, because it's kind of the crazy environment we live in all the time.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's it. Like every woman needs to check in with herself. Like who can I be naked in front of, right? Because that's like, who am I fully comfortable with showing and sounding and being raw and wild and all of these things? And that's going to be different for everybody. And it really sounds like
Yeah.
you're not even faced by that. The contrary, it just gave you energy and confidence. And for some people, that's how it is. And that's beautiful. And then they should have all those people. And especially, like you said, I think it's also a difference being who you are, first of all, that when there were so many people around you at the end, like when at the end, a lot of women, you're just in it. Like you don't
Hmm.
bother who's around you at that point. Not everyone, some still super highly sensitive people that definitely affects their process, but obviously for you, not. But in the end, it's just most are just like in it. You're just in it. You're just doing it. Whereas if it had been like that full house early labor, maybe you
Hmm.
wouldn't have had this straightforward. Maybe you
Right.
would have, you would have felt more watched and all of that, right? And
Watch. Yeah.
disturbed in the beginning. So it's all about timing too, isn't it? And it sounds like it just all worked out perfectly for you. And I also want to say, like, this whole thing about meconium in the waters, for everyone listening, like it is still very rare that it'll be a problem for your baby, right? That they will inhale that meconium and that it will be a problem for them to breathe, because that's what you're afraid of when there's meconium in the waters. It is super rare at that it is a problem. And if you do have meconium in the water, especially if it's really thick and a lot, what you want is a baby that's not stressed. What you want is to continue being calm and your environment to be calm, and you just to birth that baby calmly without stressing that baby, right? And without stressing that
Hmm.
mom. That is the key, because a stressed baby might inhale, right? Whereas a calm baby will just take their time and, not be maybe as affected. So, I mean, that's, I think, a key thing there. And just, and then, sometimes it'll happen and it's very rare. And when it happens, yeah, it's great to have medics close by, but you can also transfer if it's a problem. And, I just don't want people to be so afraid of meconium, because actually, at the end of the day, very few babies are affected, and more so if that baby is stressed in hospital with
Yeah.
pitocin, and there's blue pushing and there's all these things happening. That baby is more stressed and compromised than a baby who's born at home calmly. Not saying that,
Hmm.
definitely there can be a baby born at home in meconium that can suffer the consequences, but it's very rare. I just want to really point that out. Super, super rare.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I know even my midwives after the fact, they always talk about how like after a birth they always kind of debrief and talk about things that could be done differently. And I know they said that they really talked about trying to like, instead of just going immediately to like transfer plan, like giving it a few good pushes and seeing how baby's moving, and just kind of how they can do things differently. And um I don't know that they were worried about how like I felt with my experience, but I think they, wanted to check in with me, and I was like, no, everything, I honestly wasn't disappointed with how anything played out. I know for a fact that this is exactly how it was all supposed to happen. But it's nice to to know that you, and again, it's like that's exactly why I trusted these people and knew that I was in the right hands, because it's like, yeah, everybody, you have policies in place for certain reasons, but they should be questioned, and
Mm.
everyone should be looking to like make progress and what they could do differently next time. And that was so nice to hear, um
Yeah.
that they're looking at things like that.
And I've been with babies everywhere, hospital, birth center, home, who've been born through so much meconium. Like, I've had one
Hmm.
baby. This was in hospital. Like, that baby came out green, just like
Covered.
there was so much meconium. And, screaming its head off, being perfect, no problem, right? And I remember that time, just like, I've never seen so much meconium in my life. Like, there was so much meconium. It was just incredible. Perfect. Mom, it was her fifth baby, birthed that baby perfectly, no worries. That baby wasn't stressed, there was no problem. And that's kind of where it stems from, is that the kind of idea that, oh, it's meconium because the baby is stressed. It's not a poo
That's
because it's
right.
stressed. But no, most babies that do a poo it has meconium.
Mhm.
Just that they're ready to be birthed. They
They
are,
were ready, yeah,
you
and she
know,
was so ready.
yeah.
She came on her guest date, so I went into labor the night of the 20th. She came on the date that I had said was her guest date, and she was just, yeah, she was ready to be here.
I love that. Beautiful. What a celebratory story. I love these kinds of births that are kind of like almost like a family community celebration vibe. So thank you for coming and sharing that with us. Now, if you had a first-time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby and she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to her?
Yeah, so I thought about this for a while, because I wanted to to make it good, and it's like there are so many good little pieces of advice. It's hard to pinpoint, what's going to resonate the most with somebody, but just overall, what I would say is just to trust your gut, that you know your body and your baby better than anyone, even when like your fear or anxiety that seems to be the loudest tells you otherwise. Like deep down you know, and just need to trust your gut, and that you're the most capable person to carry your baby, to advocate for the both of you, and just to birth your baby, and if something doesn't feel right, then you should find something that does and just lean into that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much, Anna. This was wonderful.
Beautiful.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as The Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.